All right, everybody, we are here. We are in the Malika Ling Studios at the Breathing Room space, and we are honored and excited and ecstatic to have the one and only Stanley Howard in the building.
Stop it. Stop it.
You deserve it and so much more.
Stop it.
Let's go.
So, man, it's really good to have you here. So excited for this conversation. We like to start all of our conversations with a two-part question. And it's a question centered around time. So in this time, and define that however you will, whether that's this day, this hour, this season, this lifetime. In this time, how is the world treating you and how are you treating the world? Stanley Howard.
Wow. Thanks for that great introduction. I don't think I'm worthy of it, but
Worthy of so much more.
And I
You're
thank
worthy
you.
of at least 4 ad-libs. Minimum.
And I thank you all for this opportunity. I've been hearing about this space for a while, and I'm excited to be here. Where I'm at in time right now, wow, that is a good question. Actually, I'm all over the place, and I'm enjoying it. Why am I enjoying it? Because I'm enjoying doing what I love doing. And, you know, I think a higher power gave me this life. I think I've been groomed, trained, and molded for this life. And where I'm at in this space, in this time right now, busy. Busy. You know, with work at Uptown People's Law Center, you know, preparing to do our podcast with Renaldo Hudson. Just started college to get my bachelor's degree in organization leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And working on my play right now. My first reading will be on March 3rd in conjunction with White Theater and the Mud Theater. And just heard a little while ago from the Chicago Torture Justice Center doing their festival coming up this fall that my full play would be presented. Been doing that, man, and, you know, just all over the place. And I love it, man. Yeah.
I love the joy of being in the mix in that way of like, it sounds like there's ideas and then the joy of being able to like take it to fruition is part of what is feeling good right now, is like having the people around you and then also having the space and the time to be in that motion.
So you're giving us a glimpse, and we'll obviously get like the full backstory, but you've been back home a year?
Yeah, 14, 15 months
14,
now.
15 months. So your creative works are coming to light. You know, you're an organizer, you're a legal scholar, and you're like activating in all those different ways. Tell yourself 5 years ago how this year is going and how it feels. Talk to Stanley in 2019 or something.
Wow. You know, I just did that a little while ago, right before I got out. On the day before I got out, while all the guys was coming to the cell, let me get this, let me get that, let me get this, just trying to turn the cell into a skeleton. I was busy writing a letter to 21-year-old Stanley Howard. And on my way out of prison after 39 years of incarceration in one day, 16 years on Illinois' death row, I mailed the letter to myself. And the letter came home, and I kept this letter sealed for a whole year. In my family room on top of my picture, waiting for the perfect opportunity to open this letter. So I picked the day that, you know, we had this party at Beer Air Spot, my 1-year anniversary / my first birthday party ever. And after they did the little party and had the little toast and roast, I had a surprise for everybody. I pulled the letter out and I read it to everybody. And I thought I was the only one in the room crying. It seemed like everybody was in the room crying because I wanted to go back and talk to that kid and tell that kid everything that he was going to go through and what he's going to endure, and that it was going to be some trying times. But the gist of the letter was to tell him not to worry. And then I gave him a lot of bright spots about what he was going to turn into. And in the end of the letter, I was basically telling him, I may not say that I was proud of the kid that he was. I'm so proud of the man that he's going to be. And, you know, it was really touching. Now, if I could go back 5 years and see whether or not if I could actually imagine what this day is going to be back like and go back 5 years and tell him what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare yourself for a challenge with this technology.
Mm-hmm.
It is a brand new world.
Mm.
I'm thinking I'm going to get off out in the streets and have everything running. Everything is going to be cool. Not knowing that some of the simple things is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
And so the world when it got brand new, and I'm trying my best to navigate around a brand new planet. I could give you a couple of instances. Like on the night that I got out, that next morning, you know, I'm a morning person, so I sneaks into the shower while wife is sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I don't know, I'm looking at these gadgets up here. Now I'm trying to figure out how in the hell you turn the shower on. I'm like, wow, this is almost like insane. So do I wake her up at 5:30 in the morning, ask her how to turn the shower on? No, I'm going to figure this out. 20 minutes later, almost like, I just got frustrated with it. And I sat down in the tub. Okay, I'm going to take a bath then. As soon as I sat down, I realized the little latch, some things don't change. I'm like, damn, here's the latch. That's one. Another thing, you know, I try to be the man. Okay, she go into the store, I'm going to pump the gas. So I'm standing outside the car trying to pump the gas. I got everything set, but I don't know how to get into the car, the gas tank.
Mm-hmm.
So she come out of the store and get back into the car thinking I'm pumping gas. So she roll down the window, what's wrong? I don't know how to get the gas tank open. So she come around and just punch the thing and it opens up.
Yeah.
I mean, just little things like that is like mind blowing. And I want to try to figure a lot of this out myself. I don't want to be led around. I have to ask everybody how to do the smallest things. But when I get frustrated, then I ask for help.
Yeah.
But wifey, she's so caring. People so caring. You know, they want to help all the time. And I had to push back sometimes. Let me figure it out.
Right.
Knowing it's good brain food, too. You know how when you use your right hand so much, then when you start using your left hand, the brain like, okay, this is something new here.
Challenge.
You know, and the world, man, it's really good, man. To be able to wake up and go to my refrigerator, don't have to worry about nobody telling me when I can eat, when I can sleep, where to go and what to do. I mean, it's really good, man.
Once you get the shower latch up, everything's smooth from there, basically.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I agree.
So, obviously, you want to get into like your political history and the work that you've done, but you're naming something that I was able to witness before you came home that I would love to hear you just expound upon, and that's what support system really looks like, what family looks like. And so again, like why it's so important for me to be able to sit here with you and have this conversation is because for so many years, to me, you were a name and a voice that we would uplift, that people would teach me about. If we have an event, it's maybe Mother's Day or an exhibition somewhere, folks would try to call you in. And then I began working with Chicago Torture Justice Center and the Survivor and Family Advisory Council that your wife Michelle was a part of. And hearing the way in which she was down for the overall cause, but was so steadfast in uplifting you, supporting you, and making sure you came home. I one just uplift and honor Michelle for that work, but kind of her as an entry point to what this like loving support system that you were able to step home in. How do you see it? How does it make more possible in terms of you feeling comfortable with all of these adjustments that you have to
And
make
how
with?
is it different from what you expected it to feel like it would be?
Well, you know, I was arrested on November the 1st, 1984, and I was tortured by Chicago police officers, John Burge and company, to sign a confession to crimes I did not commit, and this led me to death row. And, you know, then everything started screaming out about what happened. And I wasn't the only one. And I started feeling the injustice about what was going on. Then it revealed to me that the courts was turning their backs on what was happening. They was ignoring it. And I ran to a really bad attorney. I had some elder guys on death row also that, you know, took a liking to some of the younger guys. So I was a kid. I was 21 years old when I got arrested. I was 23 years old when I went to death row, and I was one of the younger guys there. And I got there in 1987. In 1989, one of the older guys, you know, invited me down to Jumas service. And I didn't know what the heck this was about. And, you know, he wanted to instill some peace in me. And then he started demanding that I get in school. I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. I basically never even went. High school at Calumet was just a place I used to dress up and go chase girls, have fun, party. That was life was like then. But after I got my GED, man, it was really surprising because when I took the test for my assessment to determine where I was at, the instructor, the teacher said that I was ready for the GED test. I'm like, wow, how could that be? She said, I don't know. But if you brush up on your math a little bit, I think you could pass this test. That was in April of 1990. In May of 1990, I had my GED. Man, I couldn't tell you how proud I was to be able to send that damn thing home to Mom and show her that what I was able to do. Then came the bad attorney. And, you know, I vowed that, you know, no attorney would ever be able to stick me like that again. So I started studying criminal law on my own.
So it was in response, that choice to start studying was in response to feeling like you'd been taken advantage of, not had your needs met.
Yeah. And, you know, on death row, you locked inside the cell 23, 24 hours a day. So falling in love with criminal law was a really good thing because now I'm going to the makeshift law library that they had in the back with just books in it. I used to take these books to the cell 4 or 5 at a time and go through them and read them. And then I came across this article where this one lawyer said that her law school days was a waste. Said everything that she learned how to be a lawyer was working with other lawyers, learned how to draft affidavits, motions, petitions, and briefs and things like that. I'm like, damn, that's a good idea. So I started getting other templates and finding out how to include this, how to do that, you know. So in the end, then every book that was in that law library, at one point in time, it entered my cell. And every time I would take a book back, I would take my black marker and I would mark on the side of it to tell myself, okay, I've been in that one. 18 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 2 hours a day, every day. To whereas it got to the point to whereas I was actually able to think that I was good enough to share my knowledge with other guys on death row. This around the time they started executing people. So it was time to get the hell away from there. And I knew how corrupt and wrong and broken and racist the system was. I used to say that the system was broken. Upon further education, the system's not broken. It's working exactly like they designed it to work. But in my law class, I'll teach the guys that people design the box to lock other people in. But there are keys to this box. And you got to be able to find these keys because if they get locked in this box, they want to be able to have the keys to get out. So here's the keys. See if that key works. If that key don't work, don't get frustrated. Keep finding these keys. And everything starts off with the United States Constitution. So then I found myself in a position to whereas in the late 1990s, I say 96, 97, I started really wanting to mobilize and respond to what the courts was doing. There's no way in hell that you could tell me that the appellate court and the Illinois Supreme Court, after seeing these officers' names time and time again, year after year, that there's no way in hell that they knew that this smoke led to the fire. That we all was telling the same story about how these convictions came about. Even the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, they knew what was going on. They was prosecuting these cases year after year, sometimes simultaneously, and sometimes even in the same courtroom at the same time, vouching for these officers' credibility. So I kind of figured that if I was going to rely on the system that was in play, and I knew that they was willing to sacrifice all of us in order to be able to maintain their secret, we was going to be executed. So I wanted to take the fight out from behind the closed doors of the courtroom and take the fight to the streets. And this is when I started the Death Row 10 campaign on the inside.
Can I just pause right there? Because I want to give the space for the campaign. But before we get there, like, I could imagine in hindsight, it's easy to understand, like, this led to this, led to this. Like, as a listener, that's a narrative that makes sense. But I'm curious about the choice to dedicate that time and that energy to those books before you even get to talking to other people around you about what you're learning. I understand the not wanting to be left in the lurch or taken advantage of by another attorney. What else was motivating that, like, 5th hour of study where your eyes are tired? What were you searching for? What were the different things you were searching for in those books?
The only way I could explain that is, like I said previously, I actually fell in love with it, man. You know, some guys, you know, read a couple of chapters or maybe a couple of pages and get frustrated because this contradicts that, and they're not catching it. But I caught it. And when I caught that, when I learned that, all this stuff is connected, and it was like a puzzle. You're trying to find this puzzle, trying to put this puzzle together. And it gave me a lot to do inside the cell too, because, man, boredom would drive you crazy. And being locked in these cells all day, every day, man, I seen the guy have a nervous breakdown right next door to me. I used to tell him all the time, hey, man, turn the lights on in here. Hey, man, you just can't be sitting around all day long, man, doing nothing, man. Let's do something. Come on, read this, read that. And I had a lot of guys that was on death row, you know, feeding me. Hey, read this, read that. Hey, S-Man, what you doing up there? What you watching? Hey, never mind. Hey, turn on C-SPAN. You turn on C-SPAN, you got Clarence Thomas or William Linkers, one of the United States Supreme Court Justice. Man, I want to watch that. Hey, man, watch that. And when you come to the rec room tomorrow, we're going to discuss it. Now I got to watch this mess. And now I'm realizing, wait a minute.
Y'all are the ones keeping the C-SPAN ratings up, by the way.
Right, so we got to watch what they are doing, what they are saying. Because if you don't understand what they are doing, what they are saying, how could you combat it?
Right.
You know, this is why I love the Tribune more than the Sun-Times. I don't need to know what the liberals are doing. I need to know the conservative position, to whereas I know what my position is, what their position is, and how can I counter it. Right. So the short answer to the question, man, is that I fell in love with it, and I still love it right now today. Yeah.
So one thing that you said that, like, caught my ear is a barrier for a lot of the other guys was you get through a few pages and there are these contradictions. And what I took from that is that you took a comfort in recognizing those contradictions, or that was what the exercise was. It's like how the law contradicts itself, and then it gives you new understanding. So can you break that down a little bit more of like how being able to move through the contradictions of law empowered you?
Yeah. See, that's a big difference from my brother Ronaldo Hudson. Man, I don't want to talk about this legal stuff, man. Well, it was almost like like I just said, putting the puzzles together. And, you know, some of the first things that I tell guys to come to the law class, look, if you're not going to do the reading, you might as well just get up and leave this class. Because basically in law school, what they do, they read cases after cases after cases, dissect, analyze these cases, and that's what they do. And that's what I was doing, reading case after case after case, because, you know, now you got to learn about the Fourth Amendment, search and seizures. You got to learn about the Fifth Amendment, your right to remain silent, you know. I mean, just everything, the right to a fair trial, what that actually means. So being able to get some of the major cases, like Brady versus Maryland, which have to do with them turning over material to you. Or
I was gonna play it off like I knew Brady. I was like, oh yeah, Brady versus Maryland. You know, good Brady versus Maryland. Yeah.
Or Strickland versus Washington, your right to have an attorney, and what the criteria are to show that your attorney was ineffective. So just little things like that, whereas it leads you down this road. Then damn, now you get hungry. You want more. And that's the fact, like fall in love like a girl. Or a lady, like you chase her and just keep chasing. But this chase never ends because it's always something new and it's forever changing. So that is what led to that.
Yeah. Were you someone who, before this time, like when you were a kid, were you someone who was into puzzles or into that kind of like how things unfolded, following it down the path?
No, my childhood,
As much or as little?
I mean, it was life. It was carefree. It wasn't that I just couldn't do the work. It just wasn't interesting to me. The teachers, the school wasn't motivating me. Now I look back, I was just somebody that they were just passing through. And, like the rap song go, the teacher the church must think I'm a fool. No, it was just like that. But as a kid, here's the story, and I love to share this with you. My godfather, Tommy Gibson, he used to rub my mother's stomach when she was pregnant with me, not knowing I was a boy or a girl. This kid was gonna be a lawyer. And my godfather used to do everything for me when I was born, because my mom and my dad broken up before I was born. And he used to do everything. He used to take me everywhere. And he was the one that actually introduced me to my dad when I was 7 years old. Like, man, you see that guy right there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, go say hi, Dad.
Damn, that's a multi-directional prank right there.
So I walk up to this guy. We're in the alley between 50th and Calumet, Prairie, up on the L. And not knowing,
that's my neighborhood.
We live on this side of the L, and my dad lived on the other side of the damn L. And I never knew that. But at that moment, my dad became my dad. He looked at me like, boy, what's your mama name? I told my mom's name. He like, hey, son, because, he looked at me in the face like.
Did a little Terminator face scan.
And at that point, we was father and son. But anyway, my godfather used to always say that this kid is going to be a lawyer. And then after my arrest, the family joke was, Tommy had it wrong just a little bit. That this kid was going to need a lawyer. and there it was. They used to always laugh about it. But
you proved them right, though.
But I tell my mom, Tommy was right a little bit, because in my mind, I did become a lawyer. I'm not a family lawyer. I'm not an environmental lawyer. I'm a civil lawyer. I just happen to be a jailhouse lawyer. They had to go to jail to be a jailhouse lawyer. You can't be a jailhouse lawyer on the streets. But more so than a lawyer, what I love more is educating people with the knowledge that I have. And that's why I love sharing it, especially with the guys on the inside. And to see their light go on, it's really, really motivating. I can't tell you, man. I mean, some of the most proudest moments in my life, I always get choked up when I say this because it's real. To see some guys that I taught criminal law to on death row, when we got off of death row, and see some of them same guys helping other guys, damn, man. I mean, that is a great feeling, man. Because it's paying back and it's going to keep going. And eventually, that person that he taught ended up helping somebody else. And this is how we pull one brick at a time from this system that need to be crumbled down. So, yeah.
An impactful legacy.
Yeah.
So, I one more note before we go a little bit more into the campaign. You're answering a question that I've asked pretty much every political prisoner I've had the opportunity to meet. And I don't know if you personally identify as a political prisoner, but I think you're in that context. There definitely was a politics to your incarceration. It didn't just happen. And you were political and politicized. And so with that, particularly folks who've been down for decades, the question I've always asked, what you're speaking to, is the practice of sustaining fortitude and sustaining your humanity when there's potentially like no hope of getting out. What I hear you saying is like education, both self-education, but then also teaching, and then practicing law really like humanized you and kept you alive in there. And I just want you to continue to speak on, you know, beyond just your personal experience, how to basically stay alive is my question. Because I think a lot of folks who are not locked up, right, especially folks in movement, struggle with like, how do I keep going? And or I feel depressed, or the social dynamics aren't comfortable enough for me.
Or the weight of the systems we're fighting against.
It's too heavy. And in hearing your story and the legacy of political prisoners really humbles me and almost sometimes embarrasses me. Of like, if we're out here and we can take a shower when we want and are not able to keep our back straight, the example that y'all lead of like, actually, this system pushes harm to its furthest extent, right? And to survive that and to stay alive is something that I think all people can learn from in terms of how we face this world, particularly those of us who are trying to change it. So in addition to the books and, you know, this legacy of being the ultimate jailhouse lawyer, do you have anything more to say about like how to fortify when facing this beast?
Well, I guess you could say from the beginning of time, we all face some adversity and we all go through things. But with me in particular, finding myself on Illinois' death row and knowing that there was a possibility that these people was going to execute me, it's the one thing that you have is hope. And you can never get that up. Hope is everything. And it's a dream. And knowing that mom and the family and people were standing by me, that helped a lot. It helped a lot. And to watch other guys walk that last walk to the execution, it teaches you that a lot of things that people think is important in life, it's not important at all. It's not important at all. And if you go back and talk to a lot of people that I have encountered, they always think that I'm this happy-go-lucky person because I exude this. I'm always joking around. I'm always smiling. I'm always laughing. And it's to remind myself that I was given a gift. The gift that I was given was another day. I heard this not long ago, that God gives you a gift. And the gift is a present. The birds start singing. The rooster start crowing. And what's the gift? What's the present? A new day. A present is a present. Is a new day. And every morning, like clockwork, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear that word, hey, wake up. Let's go. Let's do this. We got to do this. And if I had to tell somebody that I believe that was giving up hope or in a situation to where they believe that they can't go on, always know that there's somebody else in a worse position that you're in. You look at what's going on in Darfur. You look at what's going on in the Congos. You look at what's going on this planet where people are starving to death. People are dying because they can't get a damn mosquito net. You got one guy walking around with $200 billion. I mean, just know that there's always a better day. We used to have this debate on death row, on the gallery. Which one's more important in life? The quantity of life or the quality of life? And some guys say, well, it's got to be the quality. Well, if you choose the quality and end it, because with the quantity, without the quantity, the quality could never get better. So I always chose the quantity.
It gives the space for transforming.
Because, the quantity allows you more time. I hate to repeat Jesse Jackson. With this Pope alive mess. But, or Barack Obama with hope.
This begrudging paraphrase. You don't see that every day.
But yeah, man, I mean, it's hope. And it was just that theme. I had this a-hole judge. That's another story. And our war, our war between each other, I knew something was wrong with this dude. Come back to think that he was an ex-cop, used to work with the guys that tortured me. Ex-cop, ex-prosecutor, used to work in the same office that prosecuted me. And there was some history between him and one of the police armed robbery case I was accused of and convicted of. He never even told me none of that. But my main thing was I didn't want to die on that side of the wall. So my whole struggle was to get out. And I didn't care whether or not if I got hit by a bus the next day, but I didn't want to die on that side of the wall. Then I started realizing it wasn't just about me. I'm looking around, my other brothers in the same predicament, white, black, and brown in the same predicament. And how many of them guys could I help with their struggles or what they want to do? Get out. So that's what it's about.
So let's jump back to the moment you mentioned earlier in the birth of the campaign. So you've been teaching this law class to to the guys around you. You've been seeing the overlaps and the dissonances, and you mentioned also like this moment of escalation of actually seeing people make that walk. Talk me through the early days of of figuring out how do we take this beyond these walls and figure out how do we bring this fight to a different space.
Well, we talking 97, 98.
Second three-peat.
Yeah.
I was about to say, Damon, where we in the three-peat?
I measured the 90s with a three-peat.
Okay, and we was in a situation at that time, we had 12 people executed, and we had 11 people exonerated.
Okay.
So it's almost like a 50-50 chance. I mean, what's going on here?
Right.
If there was an airplane crash, they'd be all over trying to figure out what's going on. Why is it that 11 people was exonerated? It wasn't because the system worked. It was because what happened outside the system worked. So,
right, and that wasn't, to clarify, that wasn't 11 stays of execution. That was 11 exonerations.
People walked off of death row.
Right.
And about this political prisoner thing, all three branches of government was either complicit in this scandal or knew about the scandal or worked to cover it up. All three branches of government. And that is no joke. But my point was that we knew that we wasn't getting no action inside the courtrooms. And my brother Aaron Patterson, he was already out publicizing what was going on with him and the torture cases. But when I looked up, I counted, it was 10 of us on death row that was tortured by the same group of cops. And
out of how many people on death row at that time?
I'd say about 160,
Okay.
170. But the thing was, let's take the fight to the streets. If the people of the state of Illinois, after we tell our story, if they was willing to execute me under those circumstances, okay, so be it. But I didn't want somebody in these back rooms to make these final decisions. And the jury that sentenced me to death was not abreast or even knew about what had happened. All of that was sealed. I mean, but I didn't want to come out as Stanley Howard because I knew that there was other guys that needed the same help I needed. So I started calling us the John Burris 10. And then realizing don't nobody around this planet know who John Burris is. So I started calling us the Death Row 10. So I took a piece of typing paper, which is called copy paper today, and I took a black marker and I wrote the Death Row 10 on there. After talking with a couple of guys, including Ronald Kitchen, I'm like, man, bro, we should call a protest in front of police headquarters. Yeah, let's do that. Let's get our family and people involved. That's how we're gonna do this. So after I drew the Death Row 10 on top of the mark, on top of the page, I typed all of the names of the individuals that was involved, the Death Row 10 members. And I started gluing different pieces on this carbon paper, copy paper. And, and at the bottom, I wrote the date of the protest. I done this was in June of 1998. And the protest was called for September the 8th, September the 9th, 1998. They gave us some months to organize. So I started writing letters, sending letters out to people asking for help. Nobody was willing to help. After I got the flyer done, I asked the law library to copy it. Nobody wanted to do it. It took some weeks to convince this one lady to copy it and gave us 100 copies. And I was passing around to the other guys. Hey man, send this to your family members. Here's some write-outs. Here's some envelopes. Send this to your family members. And then they got some copies. So here we was. Nobody was willing to help us. And then all of a sudden, one organization volunteered to help us. It was the Campaign in the Death Penalty. And when they decided to help us organize this protest, we called it a really good headwind. The headwind was the Anthony Porter case. Anthony Porter was 38 hours away from execution, and ended up getting the stay of execution. And during the stay of execution, the Northwestern journey students found the guy who actually committed the crime. First they found his wife, and his wife said, yeah, my husband committed the crime. And then they went and located him, and he confessed to it. And Anthony Porter walked off of death row. And that's around the same time that the Death Row 10 came out. And then this cop killed this girl on the streets of Chicago. Her name was LaTanya Haggerty because she had a cell phone. And then right behind that, Robert Rush, the Northwestern student football player, get killed on the expressway by a cop. So all this was the headwind that actually pushed the Death Row 10 because one, we had the death penalty case in Anthony Porter. Two, we had the police doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. And that's what pushed the Death Row 10 out there.
Had you had any contact or relationship with the campaign to end the death penalty before this, or did they just get an envelope in the mail with the letter?
No, there was just one individual who's the executive director, if you will, of the campaign to the death penalty. Her name was Marlene Martin. She used to come in on death row with the Illinois Coalition Against the Death Penalty with Bill Ryan, the Viva, and that group. But they used to come in to give us more support, anything that we need, pencil, paper, anything like that. And they was actively trying to stop the death penalty. But the campaign in the death penalty was Marlene Martin's group. And with that, that's when we met Alice Kim and Joan Parkins. And they really took this fight nationally. The campaign in the death penalty eventually ended up becoming a national organization with chapters in Texas, California, New York, and other places. And I used to love doing these live from death rows. From the book Mamil Dujamal wrote, Live from Death Row, where I would call into these different events and tell my story about life on death row, the Death Row 10, and the best part for me was when the audience was able to ask me questions. And I always said then, like I said earlier, no question is off limits, and that was the best part. Yeah.
I can imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like this moment of one, knowing you're being heard, but also being able to like engage in the back and forth that have been looking at these books and the people around you for, that there's this larger, there's this larger room out there asking those same questions that you are and looking to you for some answers too.
Yeah.
But I want to jump back because you were talking about sending the flyer around. Let's talk about the protest. What happened?
Man, the first protest, a lot of people showed up. And when I got the pictures, it was amazing that, it was the first time that my mom, was able to speak on the microphone to tell people what happened to her son. But my mom, she was my main supporter. And she was out, trying to tell the world. She even testified in front of city council in 85, 86 about what happened to me. And to see the other guys, family members come out and support it, and other organizations just around the time, to see Bill Ryan standing out there also, who used to come on death row with us with the campaign with the coalition against the death penalty. It was really nice. And that led to more rallies, more protests, more demonstrations, more meetings, and things like that. We used to have these guys on death row. We inside the cells. And when I used to do the live from death rows, when I first started doing them, I used to tell the guys, hey, look, the campaign and the death penalty got this chant. I'm finna make this telephone call. I'm finna call to Texas right now to this big group, and I need y'all help. What you need me to do? Hey, when I holler outside the cell bars, and I holler out, they say death row, I want y'all to start screaming. We say hell no. All right? They like, yeah, we gonna do that. I'm like, okay, wait for me to call outside the cell. And I would call outside the cell, and I had the phone out. They say death row, and they would start screaming. We say hell no. They say death row, we say hell no. They start kicking on the bars, making all this noise, and the police come running, trying to figure out what's going on the first few times, and they realize after we done it so many times, there's just Stanley Howard on the phone again, getting the guys all railed up. Yeah, it was nice.
This story is so important to me. So there's so many places I want to dig in, because I think I can say, was activated by, the viral relationship to police killings, namely Ferguson and Mike Brown and Laquan McDonald and Kia Boyd. That's what activated me into being a person that just didn't fuck with the police and why do we have them, to seeing myself in movement and organizing. And I think what grounded me or sustained me or taught me that this is right, with beyond a shadow of the doubt, is the history of torture survivors and the work of Death Row, of the Death Row 10 and the campaign to end Death Row. And so one of the things that I think is the most important aspect of the story that you mentioned, your mother, is the way in which ordinary family members, once having their loved ones, their children, their spouses, having, them be traumatized and their life destroyed and taken away from their family, had the courage, the bravery, and again, this fortitude to continue for year after year, not just say, let my baby out, but I'm going to show up for everybody else's rally, or I'm going to show up for this policy, or I'm going to show up to this court case. And so I just would, I've heard that story so many times. We do the Mother's Day celebrations, the idea of the mamas at the front of the movement. Can you teach us a little bit more about what that external support looked like and how everyday folks, whether it was mothers, spouses, brothers, sisters, help push us forward to where we are?
I don't know enough if you're old enough to know what happened in the late 80s and early 90s with this.
92 is when I was born. The second championship. Number 2 is 6.
We had this get tough on crime era where politicians was somewhat scared to be viewed as soft on crime.
Right.
So we didn't have a lot of this activism and movement building going on at that time.
And black folks adhered to it too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of preachers and a lot of, black elected officials that would get a lot of political points off that rhetoric.
Yeah. And they had succumbed to the fact that, since we can't beat them, we might as well join them. Yeah. A lot of them was involved in the mass incarceration also.
Yeah.
Lock them up and throw away the key.
A great text, I don't know, it's James Foreman Jr.'s Locking Up Our Own. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
His parents were in SNCC, and he became a lawyer in DC, and he basically catalogs what you're talking about of this, the presentation of civil rights got turned on the heel, and a lot of folks started pandering towards this concern. So a lot of black judges, a lot of black politicians actually, similar to how Clinton was able to do more to tax reform than Reagan was, a lot of black folks in the 80s and 90s actually made these policies be able to come to fruition.
Yeah. I remember when George Bush stole the second lesson. I shouldn't say that. because still in elections, it seems like it's
It's in vogue now,
It's a live wire these days. But Jesse Jackson and Minister Farrakhan, they met on the Cliff Kelly show on WVON, and I listened at this, and they was talking about that the criminal justice issue is the most major civil rights issue of our day. I'm like, wow, what a change. And now you have some of these Republicans going around the country trying to be reformers in some of these red states. It's not like they got soft on crime. They're trying to be more smart on crime, on how they spend these dollars. But things have changed. But to answer your question, earlier I said that the truth don't lie. And to watch my mom and other family members, go after some of the most powerful people allegedly in the city of Chicago daily and on down, instead of confronting them, when you approach people with the truth, the only thing they could do is bag up and try to run and hide. But, we wasn't getting no media coverage back then. But when everything started to roll out, people started paying attention. And this is why I love doing this work right now, because for some reason, not to throw shade on the Central Park Five, my brother Yusef Salon and company, more people know about the Central Park 5 case in this country than they do about one of the largest government corruption scandals in American history. Not black history, in American history. And I'm setting out to change that. I want to change that. But having family members get involved, it gives them that hope. Yeah, you're going to let my baby go. Yeah, you're going to let my brother go. And that makes them want to get up even more and keep pushing. And that hope and that fight give the guys even more hope on the inside. And that it's an extension.
How, this is just kind of a logistical question. You mentioned hearing that on the radio. You were talking about the exchange of information between inside and outside, the exchange of organizing. How connected did you feel to the decision making and the work happening on the outside? What was the nuts and bolts organizing between inside and outside once the campaign really got strong?
Well, like in all political movements, there's a struggle and an eternal struggle. We have some guys that disagree with the path that we should go, and we had some guys that was willing to, come together and hammer out things. Without mentioning any names, well, first of all, let me say this here. I got the count wrong. It wasn't 10 of us. It was 12 of us. But it was too late to change the name to the Death Row 12. And we had already been coming out. And,
There's only so much copy paper available at this point.
Death Row doesn't cut out all right.
It's like a real Big 10, Big 12. Just the big.
Yeah, it was too late to change the name. But we had some internal fighting and strife going on. But we was cohesive in the direction that we wanted to go. We had different ideas and positions on how to get there, but we knew where we wanted to go. And to organize with people on the outside, through visiting, through telephone calls, and through letters, that's how we stayed connected. And with Alice Kim, Joan Parkin, and Marlene Martin, we was able to do a lot together. And we had the group that wanted to do their own thing because they wasn't able to control what was going on. Then we had another group that was standing fast for what I wanted to do and the direction I wanted to go. Some of them was like, man, I don't have no family that's willing to come out and, hold a sign with my name on it or a picture with my name on it. I'm going with them. I'm going to ride with this. And that's how we was able to do that, man. And we got the attention of the people. Yeah.
To some of what Damon was speaking to earlier of for people where the stakes are not as immediately high, those types of tensions and decision making happens anyway. Yeah. But literally the stakes are life and death in this. Yeah. Is there anything you learned about how to resolve conflict moving through that's been helpful in organizing since you've been out, basically?
Yeah. I equate it to like playing basketball.
Which three-peat?
When you start arguing with your teammates and the other team is having fun
Kobe Shaq.
and enjoying themselves, you know, it's hard to get that rhythm.
Yeah.
And the way you do this is that, in my best opinion, just because you have a disagreement on policies or how you all wants to move doesn't necessarily make the other person a bad person or your enemy.
Right.
Sometimes it's best to try to meet in the middle just to be able to keep the organization and the fight going. And, you know, there's always going to be disagreements. And how you handle those disagreements is going to be important. That's in any movement. And sometimes you got people that just throw up their hand and say, okay, I'm done. You just got to keep plowing through it, man.
Yeah.
And just because your teammate disagree with who should do all the damn shooting or should do all the speaking or all the writing or, you know, have more contact doesn't mean that they are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in trying to be respectful of your time, there's so much victory to push through. I mean, there's obviously like spiritual and human victory, but some of the most important judicial and legislative wins in history.
Yeah.
So I wanna see how we can push through that. Like we get to from John Burge being a name that people wouldn't know, so we got to call ourselves Death Row 10, to then there being real reporting, real storytelling, real understanding. We abolish death row.
About the death penalty.
The death penalty. John Burge goes to trial, not for his crimes, but for perjury. And then people start talking about reparation and repair and like city council ordinance and that. So I know I'm pushing through like a 10, 15 year time span, but I have not yet heard what it looked like from your perspective to these things that started from your study. You know, you weren't alone. There were other coalitions, there were other people, but you made a singular and unique contribution to this effort. So your study, your efforts, your marker on a piece of copy paper to now these real world victories. How did it land for you? How did it feel? Because you are also still dealing with your own freedom while these political victories are happening.
And maybe we could go break them up a little bit, like starting with the abolition of the death penalty. Like, what did that moment feel like? And then we could do the other one.
We could speed this up a little bit. I think I know what you are getting at. First came the first major victory for us was not simply the guys walking off of death row being exonerated. It was to have the moratorium put on the death penalty by Governor Ryan to look into what was going on. And this was around the time W. Bush was running for president. And you know, we had a President Bill Clinton who actually went back through the campaign trail to execute someone that we know that was mentally ill. But we had the moratorium, definitely in agreement with that. We had a Blue Ribbon Commission appointed to look into the death penalty system and the criminal legal system. And they came back with 100-some recommendations to reform the system. 2-3 reform, state of Illinois crying about money, can't implement this, can't implement that. We had that. And that put a black eye on the criminal justice system completely. We had these clemency hearings to try to show that something was wrong with the system. And at the clemency hearings, we end up having a major victory where Governor Ryan pardoned 4 members of the Death Row 10. It was supposed to have been 5 members from our first count. And it was supposed to have been me, Ronald Kitchen, Aaron Patterson, Leroy Orange, and Madison Hobley. Somehow, between those 3 days, Ronald Kitchen was excluded. But eventually, he ended up getting exonerated also. And then the next day after the pardons, you know, Madison Hobley, Leroy Orange, and Aaron Patterson, they went home, but I stayed fighting more cases, which I'm still adjudicating right now today. The next day, Governor Ryan emptied out death row, but that didn't end the fight. We kept fighting, kept pushing the Death Row 10, the torture scandal. wanted to change the name from the Death Row 10 to the Chicago Police Torture Survivors. Then after that came all the guys walking off of death row, going to these different prisons with life in prisons. Now wait a minute. Life in prison is no different between the death penalty. It's just a slow form of death. And want to change that. We eventually end up getting the death penalty abolished.
But
that was a major victory.
Just to jump in for one point, it sounds like there was a shift of trying to, on an individual basis, advocate for whether a person is innocent or guilty, to then making the conversation about what are the harms structures of this system. Like, who's being evaluated here? It sounds like shifted a little bit. Does that ring true?
Yeah. Well, with the system of death, back in the 1973, early 70s, the United States Supreme Court found that the death penalty was unconstitutional because it was being passed out in an arbitrary and capricious manner. There was no set standards on who received the death penalty and who don't. All they always say is the worst of the worst. No, it's not the worst of the worst. It's poor folks and people of color that receive the death penalty more so than anybody in this damn country. Now, murder is murder. We understand that. Those want to use the eye for the eye standard. You don't burglarize the burglar. You don't rape the rapist. You don't rob the robber. So what makes it right to kill the so-called killer? But we know that the system is not perfect. The system is made by man. What's the odds of a person being innocent and being executed? But we're not just going to look at those that are innocent. We believe that the death penalty, in this country, every human being has redeemable qualities. And with the state of Illinois, we have a constitution. In our constitution, it says that everybody should be corrected or redeemed.
Heavy on the air quotes.
Back to use of citizenship, if you will. So that's a contradiction within itself. So no, it's not just about the innocent or guilt. Look at my brother Ronaldo Hudson, who was sentenced to death. Look at the person he is right now. Look at the great work that he's doing right now. We have many Ronaldo Hudsons still on the other side as well. That's why we got to bring back this parole board, which is one of the fights I'm involved in right now. So yeah, we had those major victories with the death penalty. Well, gladly that the governor at the time, Quinn, and the legislature at the time realized that this system is too broken. Like the rest of this planet, the westernized society, realized that we should not have a death penalty on this planet. For some reason, the United States, China, and a couple of other people decide to continue to execute their citizens. You can't show love. In Sister Helen Brishon book, real quickly here, Dead Man Walking, the child watching the news about this death penalty case comes up. The child asks the parent, what's the death penalty? Why are they going to execute him? What's execution? When the parents explained what it was and that they was going to execute that person for killing someone, the child asked the question, well, who's going to kill them for killing them? And you always look for a child to be able to express, the true feelings of what's going on this planet. But to speed things up a little bit more, yeah, we had the Torture and Crime Relief Commission that was passed to look into the torture cases. The legislation,
which is huge.
It's great
to create. Even though Turk has had its shortcomings and is not perfect. The fact that this work explicitly brought about a new agency or body of government that was designed to look into advocating for, or at least responding to this fact that so many people who are incarcerated are there because they were tortured.
And what the thing is that they're supposed to look into the cases. If you have a valid claim of torture, then you're supposed to be able to go back and get a new hearing. And if that's the case, a new trial. And my problem with the Turks is that they don't have no teeth. You send you back to the same courtrooms in front of the same judges with the same prosecutors. So I will hope that they amend the legislation to be able to give the Turk more teeth on being able to actually throw out cases. Whether or not if there's a conflict between branches of the judicial branch and the executive branch, okay, if that's a conflict, give the governor some power to be able to take action in these cases. We had that victory. We had the victory about the reparations, the first of its kind in this country, way before Evanston got theirs, but the first of its kind in this country, whereas this is Chicago finally recognized what had happened. And we got an apology from the mayor. This had to the Quan McDonald situation also.
No, his feet was to the fire.
Yeah. And then shot 16 times by this dumb cop. But the torture reparations also give free counseling to torture survivors, their family, and immediate family. Teach a curriculum in Chicago Public Schools in 8th grade and 10th grade, and gave out a little piece of money to survivors, 55 survivors, because Ron Emanuel didn't want to give out more money. He gave $5.5 million. They was able to split that up. And the reparations is one of the reasons as to why I wrote my book, Tortured by Blue. Because when I realized that there was going to be a curriculum in 8th grade and 10th grade, I'm like, wait a minute. These so-called scholars and experts going to get together and write the book and sell the book to the textbook to the city of Chicago to teach our kids about what happened, and they was going to water it down, and they wanted to be able to tell the truth and call it spade a spade. So I started writing my book, A Sworn True Story, How this man was sentenced to death, and started writing the book, The Tortured by Blue, because I wanted to tell the story from my point of view without leaving anything behind, and also give a person a good overview of the criminal legal system and how we got here, starting with the history of policing and what led to gave John Burns and company the belief as to what made them think they was able to get away with this.
Yeah, rather than just phenomenalizing as if like this was one isolated thing. You got to put it in context.
It's part of the culture,
right?
You know, and you know, talked about the state's attorney's office. You know, the mayor. I mean, it's not simply because it's my book and I wrote it and I'm plugging it, but yeah, it's a really good book, and anybody that's doing this movement should grab this book on Amazon and figure out, you know, I'm guaranteed you that you would be able to grab a lot from it. But we had a lot of major victories, but we still have some guys incarcerated, and I'm still doing this work right now today.
So I have again, thank you for your work, but thank you for telling us this story, because your work, this story, this larger movement is, again, what has taught me abolition beyond abstract theory. I think, one, on the front end, it teaches me really what policing has been in America. Like, it's not cops happen to be just like assholes, you know, and there are little too rough or not polite enough. There was a political demand nationally, on a state level, on a city level, to discipline and punish black communities instead of addressing why violence happens. And instead of it actually being about justice, it is about, we need any young black face so that we can get the political capital of putting someone behind bars because it's happening. So it's not about right or wrong, or it's not about we got to catch the guy, even within their framework. It is about political capital. And then secondly, the abolition is a process, right? So you get a moratorium. You abolish the death penalty. You build a Turk commission, right? You get reparation. Like, right, it's not one fell swoop. This is something that's a protracted struggle that's taking place over decades. And so that's just the learning that I have. I'm curious, you know, critical resistance comes about in the late 90s, and this language of abolition and, you know, taking the legacies of, you know, this, you know, Underground Railroad and the Civil War, and like using it to name that this is in the lineage of chattel slavery and is racial and economic oppression and needs to be ended. For people who've been inside, though, I've heard folks like challenge or try to complicate that notion. As this work is happening and abolition is becoming this like thrust or this umbrella that's bringing so many people to support, how did that land for you as an idea? And now, you know, 30, 35 years later of doing this, what do you think people should understand about this idea?
I think it's a movement that's been going on for hundreds of years, man. You know, you could go back to people chasing enslaved people and those encounters, where you going, and you got your papers on you, and you know back then, even then, it's not going to be a wonderful encounter. You're going to be physically, emotionally abused, or maybe even killed. You can speed that up through Reconstruction, the birth of the Klan, and the Knights. I mean, you could go back to the terrorization of that all the way up through the Civil Rights Movement. Was those cops who sucked them dogs on them people and beat them people like that, was they ever punished? No, because they were doing the work that they was told to do.
Right.
And even with that work, you could leave all the way back up to what John Burge and everybody else was been doing. And they doing what they was trained and told to do.
Yeah.
And that is to keep these people in line. And, you know, I tell that story in the book also. I actually predicted what was going to happen with George Floyd, with that. After walking people up through this movement from slavery through Reconstruction, through the Civil Rights Movement, and Rodney King, when we said that, yeah, we got one. It's on camera. Then we kept seeing this flicker with Jenna 6, Rodney King, and I said that one day that this flicker is going to turn into a flame, and this flame is going to be almost like 10 times more explosive than what happened after the Dr. King assassination. And lo and behold, the very next year after the book came out, I mean, people all around the planet, and you could tell that something is wrong, that even though cops these days have body cameras, it's so ingrained in the culture that they don't even care that they are being videotaped and it's on camera. Continue to do what they do. We got to pass the torch. And the movement's not going to die. It's not dead yet. The fight continues. For me to be able to get out and get a job at Uptown People's Law Center and continue to do the work that I've been doing for the last 30-some years, helping the guys on the inside, it's incredible.
Talk to us about, I don't want to rush past you getting out. That's that's humongous and was not guaranteed or not.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. But after I got the death penalty lifted off me, I always had an out date. And I knew that my out date was, I got the death penalty lifted off me in 2003, and my out date was scheduled for 23.
Okay.
And I never thought that. I always thought it was going to be this year or the next year or 5 years. I mean, I didn't believe that I would spend another damn 20 years incarcerated. Still fighting the case, claiming what this cop claimed I gave my oral confession. And that's the case I'm still litigating right now. But the day I got out, man, it was almost like I couldn't sleep those weeks coming up to that day. I mean, not knowing what to expect, knowing the family's gonna be waiting on me, man. It was love, man. And to see Ronaldo hustling at the door waiting on me too. But the system tried to smack me down again on my way out the door. For some reason, they didn't want me to go out the front door. They wanted to take me out the back. I'm like, why? Everybody else go out the front door. No, they wanted me to go out the back, and I pushed back. Then they came up with this idea, okay, we're gonna put you in the van, we're gonna make sure that you're off the grounds, and then we'll let you out right there. Okay, man, we do that. But yeah, man, I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, I got home, had a bunch of people there. I always had this vision of what I was going to eat that first day.
That was going to be my question. What was the plan?
Double Whopper with cheese, with extra lettuce, extra mayonnaise, extra onions, extra tomatoes.
The extra mayo, you don't see that on
there. Sitting up this high, so I'm not biting into it that the juices just go flying everywhere. But
did it hit? I feel like fast food took a big drop off.
No, we didn't even go there because my wife, who waited on me 18 years.
Wow.
I ain't cook all this damn food for nothing. We was not stopping at no damn Burger King. So I'm okay, wait a minute, we got 2 dogs at home, Queenie and Lucky. Stop off, and I want to get a pack of hot dogs. So when I meet them, I want them to meet me with this meat. And I get home, She been feeding these dogs these pebbles for the long. Hey, babe, these are meat eaters. They don't eat these damn pebbles.
You mean dog food?
Yeah.
You're referring to dog food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I show up, I buy them hot dogs, I cut up things. I mean,
You became their best friend immediately.
Oh, yeah. I don't know whether or not they love me or what not. That's what they do with the snacks right there.
They're like, where has this dude been? You're like,
yeah.
it's a long story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another story, too. You know, wifey used to keep them inside these cages because they should chew on things. And, you know, when she go to sleep, she put them in the cage. When she sleeps, she put them in the cage. Ain't nobody been in the cage around me. And since I've been home, they have not been in the cage. And right before I left, man, I was suffering because I endured death row for 16 years. I did the Pontiac Menard, Mount Sterling thing when I got the addiction. I had free reign, whereas I was out from 7 o'clock to 10:30 at night. And then COVID came. It was time for quarantine where we was locked inside the cell 23 and a half hours a day. So now I'm back locked inside the cell. My brain was like, wait a minute. We're not doing this. We're not doing this again. God's like, man, bro, you was on death row. I'm like, bro, I started having panic attacks, anxiety problems. I was having serious problems during the end of my incarceration, where some of the officers knew about my character and my personality and my credibility gave me a lot of leeway where I could tell the cops, hey, man, leave that door open, man. Don't lock that door. I'm not coming across that threshold. And 90% of them would leave my door open. So I was having real problems, whereas they knew something was wrong with the panic attacks and anxieties.
Yeah.
I was locked up, but couldn't stand to be locked up. They moved me to the dormitory area. Okay, cool, now no more locked doors. No more locked doors, cool. Then they closed that area down. Now I got to go back over here. So I'm still in the same situation. So, man, yeah, it was a blessing for me to get out. No more locked doors, man. I'm not going to, my brain ain't going for it no more.
Not even for the dogs.
Yeah.
And I think there is like a conception for people who have an experience of like, oh, this is a thing that people were inside for decades, quote unquote, get used to.
No.
Right? And to hear that like it was in those last years in that return that like your body physically couldn't hold it anymore. I think that's an important reminder. Like this is nonlinear in how people experience this. It doesn't matter how many days it is. It hits different.
And that's what guys were saying on this side. Man, you've been locked up all this time, man. You wait till you get ready to get out, man, to go crazy. Man, bro, I can't do it. I mean, I was diagnosed as having PTSD. I called it death row flashbacks. I couldn't do it, but then I learned how to do it. You know, the same way I think my way into that funk, I had to think my way out of it. You know, my ex told me to count my toes, count my fingers. That's how I deal with my anxieties.
Some somatic practices.
Lead to take the brain someplace else. So I was able to do it like that. But yeah, man, it was wonderful. And it's still wonderful. It's still wonderful. Every day is wonderful. It's a challenge. And to get up and go to work at Uptown People's Law Center, I mean, this story organization, man.
What's some of the work you're doing there?
Some of the main things that they do is help people get their Social Security benefits for free. It's a nonprofit. And they help also fight against landlords and for affordable housing. And they also do prison work, not on the individual basis unless on strange circumstances we vote to take a case, but they work on class action lawsuits suing the city, suing the state. One case is the Lipper case that deals with the consent decree that the Illinois Department of Corrections, state of Illinois, went into to provide health care. Got into a situation with a guy yesterday talking about constitutional minimal health care. But, yeah, that case is the Lipper case with medical. And we're dealing with the Rosso case, which is about the mental health situation that's inside. And the Ross case is the case that's class action they're dealing with, how Orange Crush really went heavy-handed back in 2014, beating guys. Orange Crush is the shakedown crew. And beating guys, destroying property. They call it the nuts and bust case because they were screaming that they wanted the one guy nuts up against the next guy's butt when they were doing the little walk. So they called it the nuts and bust case also. So Uptown, they do a lot of great work, man. And to be able to get out, my supervisor just told me a couple of days ago that I'll be working on the mental health cases, and this is my first case. Oh man, I can't wait to get started on this. But what I've been doing the last year, you know, Uptown get a lot of prison mail, and I mean another guy that was formerly incarcerated, Maurice. We get the mail and we go through the mail and see what we could do for the people on the inside. So to read something about what is still going on the inside, I'm still finding ways right now to collaborate with John Howard Association and other organizations to try to draw some more attention about what's going on. I was just talking with Julia from Restore Justice this morning, talking about how we could fight for the guys on the inside more so. So there's a lot of planning that's going on, and I love getting up going to work, man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. The last question I have for you is just like, what are you looking forward to? In addition to, you know, that work that you just named, but just for yourself in life.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting my bachelor's degree.
Hell yeah.
You know, I'm going to contemplate on going whether or not I want to go to law school or not. My play is out, and I'm working on my play. You know, I got a lot going on. I'm still enjoying life, and, you know, just want to try to work on my second book. You know, I've been doing a lot of writing. I got a lot of pieces I wrote over the years, and, you know, I was one of the only guy that actually had my own column in the Campaign and Death Penalty newsletter called The New Abolitionist. My column was called Keeping It Real, and, you know, I got a lot of pieces that I wrote over the years. I'm going to put these things, some of my best pieces together inside the book.
That's beautiful.
And see whatever I can tell some of the people about that also.
That's
and
beautiful.
That's what I'm on, man.
I have one last question, because I know we're stretching it and it's freezing in here. So thank you for bearing with us. But you were talking about that feeling in those last years of like the doors need to be unlocked. I can't hold that. Where in this year physically have you been where you felt the most free?
I'm free when I go home. I always had this idea that, you know, I bought a house before I got out, and I told my wife that I didn't want to move in the city of Chicago back into the same neighborhood I left from, Auburn Gresham, you know, and, you know, I bought a house, and I always had the idea of making home the place to be. And if you can enjoy going home, that's where I feel most free at. Otherwise, just got my man cave together.
There you go. You showing us some photos of the garage is looking dynamic.
Yeah, and, you know, we got a gym down in the basement, you know, and I got my wife and I got my two buddies, Queen Lucky, to meet me at the door every day. Yeah, home is the place where I'm most free at.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Well, again, Stanley, thank you so much, not only for your time, but for the time that you've put in all of this work and in fighting for your own life and your own humanity. You have literally changed the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And I'm just so happy to hear you end in that place of like the beauty and the freedom and the comfort of home. Again, I got to see Michelle struggle not having you. And that's a story that I don't think people understand of like, I think we kind of downgrade like relationships that happen from both sides of the wall, but just how important that is to sustain, and the fact that y'all are able to be together in that home that y'all built together with your dogs. It's just like the ultimate victory. So this has been a gift for us, and we honor you and we thank you, and we really appreciate all the work you've done for our people.
I thank you all also, man. I thank both of you guys. And don't forget the book, Tortured by Blue.
I was going to ask, where can folks find you, the book, in the ways that you want to be found?
I'm not on social media. I'm not, you know, I'm still getting my tech skills.
No, you're living right. That's the move.
But, you know, I'm good enough to do my little schoolwork now and my job. But you get the book from Amazon.
We'll put the link to the book in the show notes too.
And I sell them outside the car like CDs.
Totally. Yeah. You got about the trunk?
Yeah, Ronaldo always say, man, every time you go somewhere, you got that book glued to your hand. The book is my way of telling the world my story and the story about what happened. And this is why I always carry it around with me.
Beautiful.
Get Tortured by Blue wherever you can.
And we'll be back reshaping culture for the more liberatory and creative.
Much love to the people.
Peace.
Thank you.